A cast-on rag can be a useful thing and mean that we need less waste yarn and less fuss to cast on some big projects. Here's how it works. I'm trying out a new idea today. A cast-on rag for the Addi. There's a reason, and that's because there's a sweater I want to make that I think will go better if I have something like this. So here is what I've done so far. I knitted part of a flat panel. Here's the ordinary cast on, and then I dropped it off of the machine, leaving quite a lengthy yarn tail because I'm going to crochet into the open stitches. But first I picked them all up onto a knitting needle, and the yarn tail needs to be at the pointed end of the knitting needle when you do this, if you decide to try it. Now, onto the crochet hook goes one stitch with the yarn tail. Chain through that stitch one time and a second chain and pull it big and try to tighten the first chain. Naturally, this was going much better until I tried to do it in front of you. Okay, pick up a stitch, chain through it once with a little chain, chain through it again, enlarge and pull it tight. These enlarged loops are the ones that will hang on the needles eventually. Little chain. I split that stitch accidentally, sorry, but it's fixed now. Large chain and pull it tight. I'm making my large ones about 1 inch long. Little one. Same line as stitching big one. Little one. Big one. And you can see they're collecting on my crochet hook. If that gets in your way, just release them. Pick up the last one to kind of keep things neat. It helps me control it. I don't really need it on there, but it just seems to help control the whole thing. Little chain, bigger chain, and tighten up. Leaving them on the crochet hook for a little bit, getting several on at once, is a good way to help get them even. And even will help. They don't have to be perfect by any stretch, but even will help. Little chain, big chain, and tighten. This side of the swatch is what it looks like after you get it done with your double loop setup. And here, just to keep it visible to you, I've put it on the knitting needle. The knitting needle is not functional. This is what happens after the next step. I'm stabilizing these loops a little bit. They would still tend to pull out if you fooled with them. This could pull. If I pulled on this strand, this loop could pull right out, which would be inconvenient. It's not going to do it at the drop of a hat, but sometimes we struggle a little with our work, so I'll show you how I'm stabilizing them. The remainder of the yarn tail is threaded into this yarn needle. I started where it was over here, and I've been working across, and now I'm ready to stabilize this loop. You can see my yarn tail coming out here. I'm going to take it to the back, tug on the loop to solidify it, and tighten what was the little loop, this one, the one where we lifted it first off of the needle. And I'm going to come up from the back, and then around and come in from the back again and tighten that up and move on to the next one. Take the yarn to the back, tighten the big loop. Well, actually, I'm tightening the little loop, making it smaller. I think that if you can aim your needle and you come up once on the left, I think I did it right, left last time. It doesn't make any difference. And once on the right, you'll be going around the strands of yarn that represent the big loop, further locking them into place. Doing it at all is the main thing, but that's probably the most secure method. So we're going to tighten up. This time I'll go right left. I don't think it makes any difference, and looks are not the issue where looks are an issue, you always want to go exactly in the same order, whatever you might be doing, so as to keep things even. Tighten up. Get the next one ready. Come up from behind. Now this one I can't really see left and right, and I'm not going to get all distraught about it. Sometimes the yarn just doesn't come out that way. I'm just going to make every effort and go on from there. After we have this all finished, if, like is happening in this yarn, it still wants to curl and misbehave, we can do something that I normally wouldn't do to nice yarn, and that's kill it with steam. That will make it lay down flatter and stay flatter. If it were a garment, it would also lose all its character and be, in my eyes, not very attractive. But it's not a garment, it's a tool, basically. It's a cast-on rag that we will use over and over, and we don't care too much what it looks like. The only reason that I chose to use this nice yarn, this is Deborah Norville Everyday Worsted, is that I thought I would get two birds with one stone, and this can also be my gauge swatch. This is the area where we cast on, and this is what it always does. Nothing weird about it, but I think this is going to get in the way, and we don't want any distractions or anything that could hang up. So I am just single crocheting into the loops that occur at the very beginning. I'm doing it loosely, as I also did the stitching into the loops we will be using. Everything we do to this cast-on rag, we need to keep in mind that it may have to stretch sideways to go onto the needles and do its job. So we're not crocheting for looks or stitching for looks, we're stitching for functionality and to still retain the stretch. I think you can get by without this step if you want. You can do a second row if you want, and I may, because that stops the rolling better. And you can use the same yarn if you want. I chose not to because, as this is my main yarn for the sweater, I don't want to waste more than necessary. You never quite know how much it's going to take. All right, here is my finished cast-on rag. For those of you who are comfortable with crocheting, here's what worked best for me. 2 rows of single crochet, very loose, ugly to the eye for crocheters, but that's what's needed here, as I explained, followed by 1 row of slip stitch in the final row of single crochet. As you can see, that seems to be plenty of control. I probably am not going to kill these with steam. I think I can manage them. But you can see that in order to get them to lay down flat, you would need to do that. Here is why I did not choose to crochet loops up here, at least not in the traditional sense. I fear that should they have multiple strands, as most crocheted stitches do, that hanging them on the Addi needles would not work out as well. They'll hang all right. I don't think they'll knit off all right.